Hey guys, tonight we are going to perform one of the most repetitive, surprisingly athletic, and infinitely tedious jobs of the 19th century. We are heading into the smog-choked streets of Victorian London to manually ignite the city, one hiss of gas at a time. Picture wet cobblestones reflecting a sky that can't quite decide if it's grey or a bruised shade of yellow. You can almost taste the coal dust settling on your tongue, a gritty reminder that the Industrial Revolution is happening right inside your lungs. Honestly, between the crumbling ladder rungs, the explosive vapors, and the absolute mind-numbing repetition of walking the same 3 miles every single night, you probably won't survive this soar, at least. Your attention span one single quote, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment letting me know where you are and what time it is. I love seeing the global roll call of Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing in the distinctively damp vestibule of the local gas company depot. It is roughly 3:30 in the afternoon, but looking out the grimy, mesmerizingly opaque window, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's late evening. The sun gave up hours ago, suffocated by a thick woolen blanket of factory smoke and river mist. You are a Leary, a Lamplighter, and while the children's books might paint you as a cheerful fellow whistling a merry tune as you skip down the lane, the reality is a bit heavier, specifically about 30 pounds heavier. That weight comes in the form of your ladder. Before you even step outside, you have to inspect your tools, a ritual as dull as it is vital. You run a gloved hand along the side rail of the ladder. This isn't one of those modern, featherlight aluminum things that slide open with a satisfying click. No, this is solid, unforgiving oak, perhaps reinforced with iron bands that seem designed specifically to bruise your collarbone. You hoist it up, testing the balance. It smells of wet wood and old pipe tobacco. You shift the weight until it finds that permanent indentation on your shoulder. A callus you've been cultivating for years, sort of a Victorian bodily modification. If you will. Next, you check your lighting pole. It's a long, slender rod, tipped with a brass fixture that houses a small oil lamp and a hook. This is your magic wand, your key to the city, and currently, it's leaking a tiny bit of oil onto your boot. You wipe it off with a rag that is already 90% soot. The wick in the pole needs to be trimmed just so. If it's too long, it smokes. If it's too short, it flickers and dies in the wind, leaving you cursing in the dark. You take a small pair of shears and make a microscopic snip. Perfect, or at least adequate enough for government work. You step out of the depot and the air hits you immediately. It's a physical presence, a cold, damp soup that clings to your woolen coat. This coat, by the way, is made of a material so scratchy it could probably serve as industrial sandpaper, but it keeps the biting wind at bay. You adjust your cap. Verify you have your box of matches lucifers, as you call them, which sounds a bit dramatic for a stick of wood with a sulfur-tipped end. Begin the trudge. The first leg of your route is always the quietest. You are leaving the industrial yard, heading toward the residential squares where the wealthy people live, people who get very grumpy if their streets aren't illuminated by The rhythm of your walking is hypnotic. Clack, clack, scrape. That's the sound of your hobnailed boots on the granite sets. You aren't walking fast. You're walking with purpose. You have a specific number of lamps to hit, usually around 70 or 80 on a standard beat. and you have roughly an hour to get them all lit before total darkness makes the streets dangerous. It's the original high-pressure timed mission, just with less running and more respiratory hazards as you walk. You pass rows of brick-terraced houses that look exactly the same. The repetition is soothing in a way. It's just you, the grey sky, and the endless geometry of brick and mortar. Historians still argue whether the standardized layout of these Victorian streets contributed to a rise in localized depression, or if everyone was just miserable because they were drinking water from the Thames. Either way, you don't have time to be depressed. You have a schedule. You reach the first street on your beat. It's a long avenue lined with plane trees that are struggling valiantly to photosynthesize through the grime. At the far end, the street disappears into the fog, creating a vanishing point that looks like the edge of the world. The silence here is thick. Occasionally, a carriage clatters past, the horses looking just as tired as you feel, their breath pluming in the chill air. You verify the location of the first lamppost. It's a Castilian sentinel, painted a dark green that looks black in this light. Standing about 12 feet tall, this brings us to a little piece of trivia while you walk toward that iron giant. By the late 19th century, London was illuminated by tens of thousands of gas lamps. It was a massive infrastructure, a web of iron pipes running beneath the city like black veins. But here is a quirky tidbit you might not know. Before coal gas became the absolute standard, there were experiments with all sorts of fuel sources. Some early prototypes in coastal towns even utilized oil rendered from seals or whales, meaning the streetlights didn't just smell like sulfur. They smelled like a fishing trawler that had been left in the sun. Thankfully, you are dealing with coal gas tonight. It smells like rotten eggs, sure, but at least it's a terrestrial smell. You approach the first post. This is the moment where the job shifts from a walk to a workout. You have to plant the ladder. This isn't just leaning it against the post. You have to slot the top rung against the crossbar, the ladder bar which was a standard feature on these older posts. If you miss the bar and rest it against the glass lantern, you smash the glass. The company docks your pay, and you spend the rest of the night picking shards out of your cuffs. So, you focus. You swing the heavy wooden ladder off your shoulder in a smooth arc. The motion is automatic, drilled into your muscle memory. Thunk. It settles against the iron bar with a dull, reassuring sound. You pause for a microsecond at the base. You can hear the city breathing around you, distant foghorns from the river, the bark of a stray dog, the muffled shouting of a costermonger packing up his cart. But right here, at the foot of the lamp, it's just you and the iron. You check the ground for stability. The cobblestones are slick with a mixture of mud and manure, a delightful Victorian cocktail that makes ladder safety a bit of a gamble. You give the ladder a little shake. It holds that you take the first step up. Your boots are heavy. Your legs are already feeling the phantom ache of the hundreds of rungs you'll climb tonight. It's effectively the world's first Stairmaster workout, except instead of getting fit, you just get soot in your pores. As you ascend, the air gets slightly clearer, lifted above the immediate dust of the street. But then you enter the zone of the lamp itself. You are now eye level with the mechanism. A glass box perched atop a hollow pillar filled with explosive gas. The glass is cold and clouded with the residue of last night's burn. You aren't cleaning it yet. That's a morning job, a joy we will save for another time. Right now, your only goal is ignition. You balance on the ladder, your calves locking to hold you steady. You reach down to your belt and unhook the lighting pole, the brass tip cold against your fingers. You are the modern Prometheus. If Prometheus wore a flat cap and worried about the price of turnips, you are ready to begin the cycle. The ladder is set, the pole is in hand, and the first grey street stretches out before you. An endless runway of unlit iron soldiers waiting for your touch. You take a breath, inhaling the damp, metallic air, and prepare to bring fire to the gloom. You are suspended 6 feet in the air, balancing on a sliver of oak, staring into the dirty glass box of the lamp. The wind picks up, whistling through the narrow gaps between the terraced houses, and gives the ladder a gentle, nerve-wracking sway. This is the part of the job that never quite makes it into the romantic paintings of old London. The artist always captures the warm glow from the ground, not the precarious wobble or the way your shins grind against the wooden rungs. Let's talk about the sheer, repetitive strain of this. It's not just climbing a ladder. It's climbing a ladder 70 times in a row, often in conditions that would make a mountain goat reconsider. Your knees are the shock absorbers of the gas industry. Every time you step up, there's a creak, sometimes from the wood, sometimes from your joints. It's a rhythmic percussion. Step, creak, step, grunt. You reach the top, perform your task, and then descend. Step, thud, step, splash. The splash, of course, is you landing back in a puddle of dubious origin. Now look closely at the lantern itself. It's a Windsor-style casing, the standard for much of the city. It has 4 glass panes held together by a metal frame that is slowly rusting into oblivion. Before you can even think about lighting the gas, you have to open the access door. This is a small glass panel on a hinge that, 9 times out of 10, is stuck. Years of rain, soot, and bird droppings have cemented it shut. You have to use the hook on your pole to pry it open. You gently insert the brass hook into the small ring on the door. You apply pressure. Nothing happens. You apply a little more pressure. Still nothing. You mutter a word that would shock a vicar and give it a sharp tug. Clink, the door swings open, showering a fine dust of rust onto your upturned face. The interior of the lamp is a miniature ecosystem of urban filth. While your main cleaning shift is in the morning, you can't light a lamp if you can't see the burner. You peer inside. There, resting comfortably on the pilot tube, is the dried husk of a moth the size of a sparrow. It's been baked by the heat of the previous night, preserved like a pharaoh in a glass pyramid. You have to flick it out with the tip of your pole. It tumbles down, landing softly on your shoulder. You brush it off without even looking. You've seen worse. You once found a rat that had somehow squeezed inside for warmth and regretted it immediately. That was a bad Tuesday. This brings us to the glass itself. Even though you aren't doing the deep scrub right now, you often have to give the pane a quick wipe just to let the light out. You pull a rag from your pocket. This rag is legendary. It has absorbed the grime of 1,000 nights. It is stiff with grease and black as the coal seams in Newcastle. You reach in and give the glass a cursory swipe. The grime smears, creating a sort of translucent Art Nouveau pattern, but at least some light will get through. This constant battle against soot is the defining feature of your life. The gas burned in these lamps isn't clean propane. It's coal gas, produced by baking coal in an oxygen-free oven until it releases volatile vapors. It's dirty stuff. It produces a yellowish light and a significant amount of oily residue. This soot coats everything: the glass, the metal, the brickwork of the houses, and the inside of your nose. When you blow your nose at the end of a shift, the handkerchief looks like a charcoal sketch. Historians often note that the London fog wasn't just weather. It was a suspended particulate soup, and you were basically a chef stirring the pot. Speaking of odd historical details, did you know that the specific grime of London had its own ecosystem? There was a fringe scientific theory in the late 1800s that the sulfur in the gas smoke actually acted as a disinfectant, keeping the air free of miasma. So, while you're coughing up black phlegm on your ladder, you can comfort yourself with the thought that you are essentially fumigating the city against cholera. You probably won't live to see 50, but at least you won't catch the plague tonight. You finish the quick wipe and retract your hand. The glass is now slightly less opaque, a victory for public safety. But the repetition is waiting. You climb down. The descent is faster but harder on the knees. You hit the pavement, unhook the ladder from the bar, and hoist it back onto your shoulder. The indentation on your collarbone screams a little louder this time. You take 10 steps to the next lamppost. Clack, clack, scrape. This is the tyranny of the infinite ladder. It's not just the physical act, it's the mental load. You look down the street and see 20 more posts vanishing into the mist. Each one requires the exact same sequence of movements. Lift, plant, climb, pry, wipe, descend, lift. It's a loop that feels like it could go on forever. It's the kind of task that makes your mind wander to strange places. You start counting the cobblestones. You start noticing the slight variations in the brickwork of the houses. Number 42 has a chipped lintel. How scandalous. There's a meditative quality to it if you ignore the pain. The city is essentially a giant machine, and you are a tiny cog ensuring the gears keep turning. Without you, the streets go dark, the carriages crash, and the Victorian melodrama grinds to a halt. You are essential, yet invisible. You are a ghost with a ladder. You approach a lamppost that is leaning slightly to the left, likely nudged by a delivery wagon earlier in the day. This one is tricky. If you plant the ladder squarely, it will tilt. You have to calculate the geometry of the lean. You adjust the angle of your ladder, planting one leg on a slightly higher cobblestone to compensate. It's intuitive physics, learned through trial and error and a few nasty falls. You test it. Solid enough as you climb this crooked tower, you remember the moth from the last lamp. This one is moth-free, but the glass is covered in a sticky, sap-like substance, probably from the linden tree directly above it. Aphid, honeydew. Nature is constantly trying to reclaim your lamps. You wipe the sticky mess, your rag dragging against the glass. It leaves streaks, but it'll have to do. You can't spend all night polishing. You're on the clock. You look down from your perch. A cat is watching you from a garden wall. It has the smug expression of a creature that sleeps 18 hours a day and has never had to climb a ladder in the rain. You feel a brief flash of envy. Then the wind gusts, cutting through your scratchy coat, and you remember you have a job to do. You are the master of the flame, the keeper of the light, the guy who wipes bug juice off glass boxes for pennies a day. It's a glamorous life, truly. Now that the glass is sufficiently Clindoned, you've made peace with the local wildlife, we arrive at the critical moment. This is the part of the job that requires the dexterity of a watchmaker and the nerves of a bomb disposal expert. You are about to engage with the valve. Hanging there on the ladder, you reach up with your lighting pole. At the end of the pole, near the flame, is a small, hooked key, or sometimes just a simple metal turn prong, depending on the specific pattern of the lamp you're wrestling with tonight. You have to fit this key over the brass tap at the base of the burner. It's a tiny target, maybe half an inch wide, and you are trying to hit it from 6 feet away with a metal stick while the wind tries to blow you into the next postal code. You hold your breath to steady your hand. Clink, you miss. Clink, you miss again, hitting the cast iron casing. Clunk, there we go. The key slots over the tap. Now you have to turn it. This sounds simple. It should be simple. But brass valves, left out in the London damp for 20 years, do not want to turn. They want to remain seized in a permanent state of defiance. You apply torque, twisting the pole. You feel the resistance travel down the wood to your wrists. It's a battle of wills. You grit your teeth, careful not to inhale too much soot, and give it a firm, authoritative twist. Cree, eak. The valve surrenders. And then you hear it. The sound of the city waking up. Hiss, it's a low, serpentine sound. The release of pressurized coal gas escaping its iron prison. Immediately following the sound comes the smell. If you think modern city streets smell bad, you have never inhaled raw coal gas. It doesn't have that artificial rotten egg smell added to modern natural gas for safety. No, this is the real deal. It smells of sulfur, tar, and something vaguely metallic, like a wet penny that's been rolling around in a chimney. It hits the back of your throat with a chemical tang. You can't linger here. This is the danger zone. If you let the gas hiss for too long without introducing a flame, the glass box fills up with an explosive mixture. Light it too late, and you lose your eyebrows and potentially the glass pane you just wiped. Light it too early, and nothing happens. You have to find the sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone of combustion. You tilt the pole. The small oil flame kept burning at the tip of your wand is brought to the gas jet. This is the moment of magic. There is a soft pop, a sound like a polite hiccup, and the invisible hiss transforms into a fan of light.
The flame spreads out, shaped by the ceramic slit in the burner tip. This is likely a bat wing or fishtail burner, named for the specific shape of the flame. A broad, flat sheet of fire that offers the maximum surface area for luminance. It starts blue at the base, where the heat is intense, and gradients up into a warm, creamy yellow. It's actually a terrible light source by modern standards, throwing shadows that are somehow darker than the night itself. But up here, close to the source, it feels like a small victory against the void. But let's talk about what happens when things don't go this smoothly. Sometimes you turn the tap, hear the hiss, apply the flame, and nothing. The jet is blocked. Dust, tar residue, or perhaps the leg of that spider we mentioned earlier, has clogged the tiny aperture. Now you have to play surgeon. You bring the pole down, carefully, don't drop it, and fish out a small piece of wire from your coat pocket. You have to climb up a few more rungs, getting your face uncomfortably close to the burner, and poke the wire into the gas jet to clear the obstruction. While you are up there, breathing in the fumes, consider this mainstream historical fact. The town gas you are breathing isn't just methane. It's a cocktail produced by gasifying coal, containing significant amounts of hydrogen, methane, crucially, carbon monoxide. It is highly toxic. In the Victorian era, leaks were common. The pipes running under the cobblestones were made of cast iron, joined with hemp and lead. As the ground shifted or heavy drays drove over them, the pipes would crack. This brings us to a rather morbid reality check. Gas leaks didn't just cause explosions, they caused slow poisoning. People living in ground floor apartments often complained of headaches, lethargy, and strange visions. Historians still argue whether the Victorian obsession with ghosts, specters, and haunted houses was partially fueled by widespread, low-level carbon monoxide poisoning from leaky gas fixtures. You might not be seeing a ghost in the nursery. You might just have a loose fitting on the wall sconce. So, as you stand there clearing the jet, breathing in the unburnt gas, just remember, if you see a Victorian lady in a white dress floating down the street later, it's probably just your brain cells dying. You clear the blockage. You try the flame again. Pop. Dot. Success. The light flares up, steady and bright. You adjust the tap slightly to ensure the flame isn't too high. Gas costs money, and the company counts every cubic foot, but not so low that it flickers out. It's a delicate calibration. You are essentially a tuner of light, adjusting the frequency of the street. There is another danger, one more subtle than the explosion or the poison, the water trap. Sometimes, condensation collects in the U-bends of the pipes. When this happens, the gas flow becomes erratic. The light will bob and weave, pulsating like a heartbeat. We call this jumping lights. If you encounter this, there's nothing you can do from up here. The problem is underground. You just have to leave it pulsing, a rhythmic strobe light for the carriage horses to endure. It's annoying, but it's above your pay grade. You close the glass door of the lantern. It clicks shut, sealing the flame inside its aquarium of air. The wind is cut off, and the light stabilizes. You take a moment to check the pilot light on your pole. It's struggling in the damp air. If it goes out, you have to climb all the way down, find a dry spot, strike one of your precious lucifers, and relight it. The company gives you a limited ration of matches, and if you run out, you're in trouble. So, you cup your hand around the brass tip, shielding the tiny flame like it's the last hope of humanity. Here's a quirky tidbit for you. In some districts, lamplighters were actually forbidden from smoking, which seems ironic given they were walking fire hazards. But the rule wasn't about safety. It was about theft. The companies were paranoid that the lighters would use the gas flame to light their pipes, stealing a fraction of a penny's worth of gas. To prevent this, some lamps were designed with tamper-proof screws, turning the relationship between the worker and the tool into a constant low-stakes arms race. You verify the tap is secure. You verify the door is latched. You verify you haven't set your own coat on fire. Always a good check to make. The lamp is now a functioning unit of the urban infrastructure. It casts a pool of yellow light onto the wet pavement below, illuminating the mud and the horse manure with a weirdly cinematic glow. You prepare to descend. The ladder feels harder now, the wood biting into your palms. You are 1/3 of the way through your route. The gas is flowing, the poison is contained, mostly, and the risk of explosion has passed for another 24 hours. You take a deep breath of the fog, which somehow smells better than the gas, and step down. Creak, step, creak. As your boots hit the ground, you look back up at your handiwork. It's just a single flame in a city of millions, but it's your flame. You brought it to life. But don't get too sentimental. Remember that infinite line of black posts waiting in the dark? They are getting impatient. You hoist the ladder. The ache in your shoulder greets you like an old annoying friend. On to the next valve, the next hiss, the next gamble with the invisible vapor. You are back on the ground. The ladder settled into the groove of your shoulder, trudging toward the next iron sentinel. The city is changing around you. The twilight has deepened into a true heavy night, and the fog has thickened from a mist into a pea souper. This is the classic London particulate suspension, a wall of yellow-gray cotton wool that swallows sound and distorts distance. From your vantage point, perched momentarily atop the ladder at the next post, you have a unique perspective on the world. You are the lonely observer. You are effectively invisible. People in the street rarely look up. They're too busy watching their footing on the slick stones or keeping their heads down against the wind. You hover above them, a silent gargoyle in a flat cap, watching the Victorian pageant drift by. Below you, a carriage rattles past. It's a hansom cab, the two-wheeled gondola of London. You can see the top of the driver's hat, shiny with moisture, and the steaming back of the horse. Inside, Through the small side window, you catch a fleeting glimpse of a passenger. A flash of a silk dress or the white cuff of a gentleman's shirt. They are going somewhere warm, somewhere with velvet curtains and sherry. You, meanwhile, are intimate with the brickwork and the damp draft coming off the Thames. The isolation up here is profound. The circle of light you've just created carves out a small theater stage in the darkness. You see things others miss. You see the street urchin huddled in a doorway, waiting for a baker to throw out stale crusts. You see the policeman on his beat, testing door handles, his bullseye lantern swinging at his belt. You see the secret handshakes of illicit deals done in the shadows of alleyways that your lamp hasn't quite reached yet. There is a mainstream historical fact that fits this mood. The introduction of gaslighting radically changed the social life of the city. Before gas, the night was effectively a curfew for honest people. Darkness was absolute and dangerous. But gas lamps extended the day. They created the nightlife. Shop windows could stay illuminated, theaters could run late, and factories could run shifts around the clock. You aren't just lighting a street. You are enabling the modern concept of the night shift, which, ironically, is exactly what you are working. As you stare down into the swirling mist, you realize the fog itself is a character in your night. It eddies around the lamppost, illuminated by the gas flame into a swirling amber nebula. It muffles the city. The shouts of the newspaper boys sound distant and underwater. The clip-clop of hooves is dulled to a rhythmic thud. It feels like the whole world has been wrapped in batting. This brings us to a bit of a quirky tidbit about visibility. The gas lamps of this era didn't really light up the street in the modern sense. They acted more like beacons. You didn't see the road because of the light. You navigated from pool of light to pool of light, like stepping stones across a dark river. Between the lamps, the darkness was still total. In the fog, the light scatters, creating a halo effect. It's hauntingly beautiful, provided you aren't the one who has to walk 3 miles through it inhaling sulfur. While you watch, a group of revelers stumbles out of a public house down the street. They are singing a music hall song, something about boiled beef and carrots, their voices raucous and off-key. They pass right beneath your ladder, oblivious to your presence. One of them actually leans against the very post you are clinging to, using it to steady himself while he adjusts his boot. You freeze. If you move, the ladder might creak, and he'll look up and get the fright of his life. A dark shape hovering in the mist like a giant bat. You wait, breath held, until he pushes off and staggers after his friends. You are the phantom of the gasworks. There is an open, scholarly debate about the psychological impact of this new lighting. Some historians argue that gaslight actually made people more paranoid. The stark contrast between the bright pools of artificial light and the deep, deep shadows created a sense of unease. It created hiding spots. The Jack the Ripper fears were fueled not just by the crimes, but by the very lighting that was supposed to prevent them. The flickering gas made shadows jump. It turned a pile of rags into a lurking body. From your perch, you can see exactly why. The light plays tricks. The wind shakes the lantern, and the shadows of the tree branches dance on the pavement like reaching fingers. You finish with the valve, a smooth turn this time, thank goodness, and the light flares into existence. You close the door and prepare to descend, but for a second you linger. You look out over the rooftops. In the distance you can see the faint, ruddy glow of the city center, a dome of light reflecting off the low clouds. It looks like a fire, but it's just civilization burning coal. It's lonely work, but there is a strange camaraderie in it. You know that 3 streets over another Leary is doing exactly the same thing. You are part of a synchronized army, moving in patterns across the map. You never see them, but you see their work. You see a street in the distance suddenly bloom with a new dot of yellow. Ah, old Jenkins is on schedule, you think. It's a silent communication, a Morse code of lit wicks. You climb down, your boots finding the wet stones. The moment of observation is over. You are back in the muck. You hoist the ladder. The wood is now soaked through, heavier than when you started. Your shoulder is numb, which is probably for the best. You walk past a row of basement flats. Through the iron railings, you can see into the kitchens. A maid is scrubbing a pot. A cook is kneading dough. They are in the light, warm and domestic. You are outside, in the cold, carrying the means of their illumination. It's a distinct class, divide separated by a pane of glass and an iron grate. You provide the safety they take for granted. As you trudge to the next post, a stray dog trots alongside you for a few paces. It looks at you, hopeful. You have nothing to give it, not even a crumb. "Sorry, mate," you whisper. The sound of your own voice is startling in the quiet street. The dog gives a sneeze and trots off into the fog, disappearing as if it were never there. You reach the next lamp. It's situated on a corner, a prestigious spot. This one is a refuge lamp, placed on a small island in the middle of the intersection to help pedestrians cross without getting flattened by a dray cart. This means you have to navigate the traffic to get to it. You wait for a gap in the carriages. The mail coach thunders past. The horse is steaming, the driver shouting. You dash across the cobbles, ladder bouncing on your shoulder, and make it to the island. Safe on your little concrete oasis, you plant the ladder. The traffic flows around you on both sides, a river of wheels and hooves. You are the lighthouse keeper in the middle of a turbulent sea. You climb up, the noise of the traffic louder here, the smell of the horses stronger. You are in the thick of it, yet still removed, elevated above the chaos by 6 feet of oak. You light the lamp. It casts a reassuring glow over the intersection. A pedestrian, a man in a bowler hat, steps off the curb, sees the light, and nods. Not to you, but to the lamp. He crosses safely. You take a tiny amount of credit for his continued existence. You look down at your hands. They are black with soot, red with cold. The knuckles are wrought. You flex them to keep the circulation moving. Only 20 more lamps to go. The night is young, but you feel ancient. The fog swirls, the gas hisses, and the city waits for you to reveal it, one tedious, flickering street corner at a time. The final stretch. You can feel it in your bones, literally. The dampness of the London night has seeped through the layers of your wool and settled deep into your marrow. The ladder, which started the evening as a heavy tool, has transmuted into a leaden cross you are condemned to bear. You are no longer walking with the purposeful stride of a municipal employee. You are trudging. It is the leery shuffle, a gait born of exhaustion and the desperate need to keep your center of gravity low on the slick pavement. You turn the corner into the last cul-de-sac on your beat. This is a quiet dead end, lined with smaller, narrower houses. The fog here is stagnant, trapped between the brick walls, motionless and heavy. There are only 3 lamps left. 3 more climbs. 3 more valves. 3 more sparks. You can mentally calculate the remaining caloric expenditure, and it is almost too much to bear. You approach the third to last lamp. It's an old one, the iron pitted with rust. The crossbar is slightly bent. You plant the ladder and it gives a tired groan. You climb. Your legs are burning now, the lactic acid building up with every step. You reach the top. The glass is remarkably clean, a small mercy. You turn the valve. Hiss. You light it. Pop, dot. The yellow glow washes over the peeling paint of the nearest door. Done. Done. Descent. Thud die. 2 left. As you walk to the penultimate lamp, you pass a window where the curtains haven't been fully drawn. You catch a glimpse of a family sitting down to supper. A father at the head of the table, children with heads bowed. It looks warm. It looks dry. It looks like a world away from the cold, gas-scented reality you inhabit. You feel a pang of longing, not just for the food, but for the stillness. They are sitting down. You have been moving for hours. You adjust the ladder on your shoulder, the callus throbbing, and push the thought away. Envy doesn't light lamps. You reach the second to last post. This one is partially obscured by an overhanging ivy plant that has escaped a garden wall. The leaves are wet and brush against your face as you climb. It's a sensory shock. Cold, wet vegetation slapping your cheek. You have to fight the foliage to get to the lantern door. You tear away a vine, the smell of crushed green mixing with the sulfur. You get the door open. You light the gas. The ivy leaves are now illuminated from below, casting strange skeletal shadows on the pavement. It looks gothic and slightly menacing, perfect for a Victorian night. And now, the final lamp. The terminus, the omega of your route. It stands at the very end of the cul-de-sac, right against a high brick wall that separates the residential street from a disused canal path. It is the loneliest lamp in London. No one really walks here. It lights nothing but the cobblestones and perhaps a few brave rats. But the regulations say it must be lit, and so lit it shall be. You walk toward it. The sound of your boots echoes off the dead-end walls. Clack, dotty. Clack, dotty. Stop, dotty. You drop the ladder for the final time. The sound of its feet hitting the stone is the best sound you've heard all night. You take a moment before climbing. You lean your forehead against the cold iron of the post. You just breathe. In, out. The air is still foul, but it tastes like victory. You climb. Step 1. Step 2. Step 3. Your body is on autopilot. You could do this in your sleep, and frankly, you're halfway there. You reach the lantern. You open the door. The hinge squeaks, a high-pitched complaint in the silence. You insert the pole. You turn the tap. The hiss of the gas is a whisper here, amplified by the enclosed space. You bring the flame to the jet. This is it. The final act. Pop. Dot. The light blooms. It fills the dead end with a soft amber radiance. You close the door. You watch the flame for a second, mesmerizing and steady. It is done. The circuit is complete. The city, or at least your slice of it, is illuminated. You climb down. The descent feels lighter. You unhook the ladder. You shoulder it one last time. But now, you are turning back. You are heading home. The trudge back to the depot is different. You are walking through the world you just created. You are walking through your own pools of light. The streets are no longer dark chasms. They are marked, safe, and reclaimed from the night. You retrace your steps. You pass the ivy lamp, the corner lamp, the lamp with the moth. They are all burning away, silent sentinels doing their job because you did yours. You feel a quiet, dull pride. It's not glorious work. They won't build statues of you. But you held back the dark. You arrive back at the depot. The vestibule is warmer than the street. You rack your ladder in its designated slot. Clunk. The weight is gone from your shoulder, but the ghost of it remains. A phantom pressure that will linger until morning. You hang up your Latin pole. You wipe the soot from your face with a rag that is only slightly cleaner than your face. You sign the ledger. A scribbled mark next to your name. Proof of life. Proof of labor. You step back out. But this time, you are off the clock. You are just a man in a coat walking home. Now, the heavy work is over. The ladder is racked, the gas is burning, and the iron valves are all turned to open. You can stop moving now. You can stop climbing. Imagine yourself walking into your own home after that long, cold shift. You take off the heavy, scratchy wool coat. You unlace those stiff, hobnailed boots, prying them off your tired feet. You can feel your toes curling, finally free from the leather. The floor is solid and still beneath you. No wobbling rungs, no slick cobblestones, just a steady, warm surface. You sink into your favorite chair. It's soft, yielding, and perfectly shaped to hold you. The ache in your shoulder begins to fade, melting away into the cushions. The smell of sulfur and coal dust is gone, replaced by the scent of clean linens and fresh air. The only light in the room is a soft, steady glow. No flickering, no hissing. Just a gentle warmth that doesn't ask anything of you. Your breathing slows down. The rhythm of the climb, step, breathe, step, breathe, unspools into a long, slow exhale. The city outside is taking care of itself now. The lights you lit are watching over the streets, so you don't have to. You have earned this rest. You have earned this stillness. Your eyelids feel heavy, heavier than the ladder ever was. You let them close. The gray sky, the yellow fog, the endless brick walls, they all drift away, dissolving into a comfortable darkness. Not the scary darkness of the unlit street, but the velvety, peaceful darkness of sleep. You are safe. You are warm. The work is done. End of script. Sweet dreams.